Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Saturday, March the 25th, as we wrap up this week of devotions looking at the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. Talked a little bit about risk yesterday, about the need to take risk, and kind of want to finish on that note. But before I do, and the idea of faithfulness that we also talked about the day before. Cute little story. A guy came into his pastor and said, "Reverend, I only have one talent." The pastor said, "Well, what's your talent?" And the man said, "Well, I have the gift of criticism." The pastor was very wise, and he replied, "Well, the Bible says that the guy who had only one talent went out and buried it. Maybe that's what you ought to do with yours." I always like that story. The other thing about this parable is that, the faithfulness leads to greater responsibility, doesn't it? The idea that faithfulness in little things will determine how faithful we'll be in bigger things. There's a story about a very large bank where one of the employees was up for a significant promotion, and he lost that promotion one day in the bank's cafeteria when the president of the bank saw the man hide 2 pats of butter under his bread so he wouldn't have to pay for them. And the president of the bank concluded that any man who was dishonest about butter could not be trusted with bigger things. Faithfulness, using what we've been given, being faithful in what we've been given. I mean, the parable is all about all of that. Oswald Chambers once said, "God has not called us to success, but to faithfulness." And so this parable has always bothered me in one respect, because it's real easy to fault the third slave who just buried it and didn't do anything, didn't want to take any risk. And it's real easy to, praise the first 2 slaves who, doubled the master's money that each had been entrusted with. But I always wondered why, and if it was up to me, and of course it's not up to me, why there wasn't another slave, a slave who went out and used the money, risked the money, and maybe lost. Maybe things didn't go his way. Maybe through things, that were out of his control. At least he was trying. Again, God has not called us to success, but to faithfulness. And as we heard yesterday, Teddy Roosevelt talking about, it's better to risk and fail than to not even try. And so, I always wonder, if there was another slave who went out and used his master's money, basically to do the kinds of things the master would have approved of, and for whatever reason, and not because of his own mistakes or shortcomings necessarily, things just didn't work out. And, what if that slave came back, you gave me, 3 talents, master, and I went out and I used them as faithfully as I could, and I only have 1 talent left, but I used the other 2 talents doing what I felt you would have wanted me to do. And I can't imagine, or I guess I would imagine that the master would say, "Well, you've been faithful. You've been faithful to what I asked you to do. You didn't sit on it. You didn't hide it away. You used it," assuming again that he used it in a way that was consistent with what the master would have wanted and had already done. You've been faithful. For reasons that were out of your control, things didn't work out, but still, I'm proud of you. I'm satisfied with what you've done. Good job, faithful servant. You tried. You did what I would have wanted you to do, what I did want you to do, and the results were not what either one of us would have wanted or preferred. But you did faithfully use the gifts that I gave you. And I guess I would relate that to the idea that, we live in a time where there was a time where you just had to open up the doors of a church and it was successful. And those days have long passed, and people are laboring with conditions and situations that are unprecedented. And it's a matter of being faithful. And we can't always guarantee success. But again, God has not called us to success, but to faithfulness. And that doesn't mean we just, in weak resignation, say, oh, well, throw up our hands. We can't do anything. We keep working. We keep trying. We keep plodding along as best we can because we're called to faithfulness. If success comes, that's wonderful. And so I always wish that there was a fourth slave who did what the master would have wanted him to do, and it wasn't as successful as the master or the slave would have preferred, but he at least did what he was asked to do. And that's all I think God asks of us as well. The success is out of our hands. Faithfulness is completely in our hands and under our control. And on that note, we'll end our week of devotions. Hope you can join us for church tomorrow, either in person or the live stream, or catch us later in the week on our YouTube channel. Hope you have a great weekend, and hope to see you again next Tuesday with a new week of daily devotions. Until then, take care. Bye.